Welcome back to the Bitcoin Economy Podcast. We're here with Laura Wallendal, CEO of Acre. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
So we're super excited to dive in today. As we've been talking about all week, our focus has been on all Bitcoin financial services. Is our friend Zach Townsend over at Meanwhile has said, Bitcoin in the ground, just like gold, isn't as valuable as actually putting your Bitcoin to work. It's inevitable people are going to want to use their pristine collateral and assets to gain, some type of yield or return, just like any other big financial asset class. So, Laura, would love to dive in and really, you're coming from Fold, you came from Thesis, you've been in the space a long time. Tell us about Bitcoin yield. Help our listeners know just how are you thinking about that term, and then how do you approach, getting a return on Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of opportunities for Bitcoin utility these days, right? And a whole bunch of new ones. Back in the days of Fold, we were looking at, all right, how are you spending your Bitcoin, earning Bitcoin by spending? What do Bitcoin rewards look like, right? Those were early days of Bitcoin yield in some ways. And now there's a few different approaches, but our approach is really looking at how do we do this on chain? What are some of the opportunities with some of these Bitcoin L2s that are coming about? Like 90 plus raised last year.
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of innovation happening in the Bitcoin L2 space and Bitcoin DeFi space. So Bitcoin Fi, like how are people putting it to work? How are they deploying their capital? How are they bridging it? What is the custodial model of some of these L2s? And so at Acre, what we are doing is making it really easy to access these opportunities across chains and really being able to vet the right opportunities for Bitcoin yield on Bitcoin L2s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like, coming from your time at Fold, I think any team that's really made it through a bear market, made it through some of the biggest crashes we've had, FTX, BlockFi, Celsius, you've learned that trust is paramount. And there's a lot of Bitcoiners that are hardcore that, they don't have trust in any, L2s or, anything that is DeFi that is not, pure peer-to-peer transactions. What's been the process like for you having the vision to build that trust, early on with users of finding the right protocols and doing the due diligence on each of them?
Certainly. So we think a lot about, Bitcoin's core principles of security, right? Like, how are we custodying this Bitcoin? And when you're deploying it to other chains, you have to think about their security models as well. Is there a 2 of 3 multisig back there? How are they thinking about governance? How are they thinking about, all right, we're going to bridge the Bitcoin from the Bitcoin chain over to these other chains? You have to really be able to dig into these trust assumptions and not only understand, all right, this is all happening on chain, it's verifiable, I can see the transaction, right? I deposit my Bitcoin, I see the UTXO, I understand where it's gone, I understand the bridging mechanism, but then, what are you doing with it over there? And what are the right chains with the right teams? And so we work with teams who have been through bull markets and bear markets, multi-cyclers. We've been in this space a long time. We know the battle-tested teams and products out there. And so that's really what we look at, a combination of the tech, the custody, and the team.
So I think AI is a good comparison. I think as we've talked about with legislation in the U.S., if you push AI out, it's going to happen in other countries. China's going to beat the U.S. Other countries are going to surpass them. I think in the same way, you see DeFi and you see what's happening on Solana, you see what's happening on Hyperliquid and all these other, altcoins that aren't Bitcoin. Is it something you can't ignore? Users are going to want these features, and so I think there's not a lot of like knowledge there, right, around like what L2s are good. If there's 90 of them, and so there's a lot of people raising money that are going to solve this need because they know users enjoy doing the activities and making the returns that you're seeing on like these Solana and Ethereum and any other chain. But bringing it back to Bitcoin, what's kind of been like the big, with the user base, what are they, typically looking to do? Is it saying like, hey, I'm sitting on Bitcoin, I'm not doing anything with it? Do you interact with anyone that's like, doing other things like NFTs or, beyond like the ordinals, or like, what do you kind of hear from users that they're looking out of the next level apps?
Yeah, so for the users that we work with, we're really meeting them where they're at with having a Bitcoin only experience on our end. We're not expecting our users to bridge themselves. We abstract that away. Everything is all Unchained, so you can see it all happen, but we abstract away the user experience of having to bridge. It's really challenging. And we make sure that all of the yield, all of the rewards auto compound back to Bitcoin. So we have a Bitcoin in, Bitcoin out user experience. So you're not having to switch wallets, switch chains, figure out a very different custody setup for you personally or your institution, or how are you holding this? You want to deploy it, you want to put it to work, but it can be a really high bar for user experience, as there's fragmentation of liquidity and fragmentation of user experience across the board. So what we're doing is really making it very easy to access these opportunities and the right ones. Yeah.
How's the conference been so far for you? There's 30,000 people. It's been a crazy zoo. We're seeing big names. Scottie Pippen was walking in this morning, and but as being someone native to the space that's been to a lot of Bitcoin conferences, you have a lot to compare to. How's Vegas?
This year is kind of wild. I remember the first Bitcoin conferences I went to were a small group of cypherpunks hanging out, talking about the tech, and I certainly did not expect to be at this point in the timeline where there are, politicians here talking about, Bitcoin treasuries and, celebrities. It feels like a very cool, very disorienting moment in Bitcoin's history, but like I'm here for it. Like this is very, very cool. A little overwhelming, but I'm loving it. Yeah.
I mean, you can't control everything in life, and I think that there's concerns over too many treasury companies, or they're not being raising capital efficiently, or they're over leveraged, or you have people worried on the political side. But I think you have to take the good with the bad, and I think there's so much validation coming from having a vice president speak on stage, that other countries would love that type of validation, even if there's negative or bad parts in the mix. Overall, it just validates that we should all be here. We should all be talking. We should all be exploring, what people are doing. So what's next for Acre? What's the best way to follow you guys? What can we look forward to?
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter, join our Discord community. You can access all of that at acre.fi. And the next big thing that we're launching in the next couple of months is we're turning on the yield engine, the auto compounding engine. So you will be able to deposit and earn more Bitcoin on your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be following that. We might have to get you back on to do a demo next time and kind of go through the product, and then show the users, hey, here's how we aggregate these options. Here's what we go through. Here's our top ones, and here's the experience, which is something that we know people need. Avi, who's not here, he can't do, and he can't bridge. He can't do any of that. So it's going to be good to have you maybe show him how to walk him through the Acre protocol. So, Laura, really appreciate the time. Thanks for stopping by.